What's up everyone, Kaze no What If is here with What If Deku was a villain. Before we start, if you like the video, like it, share with your friends, comment, and let's start the video. Mastermind and Mr. Compress slammed the door shut behind them, then slumped to the ground, panting. Did we lose them? Mastermind checked a screen in the corner of his vision. Looks like it. With a sigh, Mr. Compress pulled out a small collection of marbles. With a dramatic flourish, the rest of the League of Supervillains came out in various states of disarray. Gentle Criminal rearranged his cravat with a fastidious air, La Brava fussing over him. Ink Blot took a shaky swig of her ink canister. We really got a big response, huh? Golden Grin said. Mastermind had prepared this location and others like it in advance. The League had been increasing the scale of crimes they were committing, and the response against them had grown in kind. So using some of the money that hadn't gone to buying better equipment and making donations to various charities in the League's name, he had purchased a couple of warehouses. The League of Supervillains took advantage of the quiet to take a breather, gentle pulling out some tea bags and going over to the kettle to make some tea. Wow. That was pretty intense, Ink Blot sighed. Mastermind nodded. Well, we're going to need to stay low to the ground until everything goes over. They had decided to rob another support company, Monkara. Mr. Compress had infiltrated as a new employee, using his talents as a master of disguise to slip in and patch them through while planting cameras. Through tireless investigation, the League had determined that this company was ripping off civilian and hero clients by overcharging, as well as discriminatory hiring practices against heteromorphic quirks. Ink Blot had been pissed off about that. We should totally tie the CEO to some train tracks, she'd growled. Mastermind had shaken his head. If we do that, then we'll attract really heavy hitters, and I don't think we're ready to fight those kinds of people yet, he'd explained. Believe me, I want to do something like that since it's classic supervillainy, but when we have a bit more preparation time. Ink Blot had frowned, then sighed. I know. Mastermind and Co. had taken advantage of the distraction that had afforded to pull off a big robbery. However, the company had been a bit more prepared than the usual ones that they had been hitting. Not just that, but there had been a visit by a private school tour in the area, something about demonstrating the benefits of the hero industry to inquiring young minds. That had made the robbery more difficult, owing to the need to avoid too much collateral damage. Whether they had forewarning or just luck, the heroes had been close at hand. The kids had scattered, making things harder, but Mastermind and Mr. Compress had prevailed. With some quick thinking, they had taken advantage of the chaos and managed to escape with loot in hand. With the League of Supervillains safely compressed for ease of transport, Mastermind and Mr. Compress had taken a stealthy route to the nearest warehouse. Mastermind checked over the stored haul. Everything has gone according to my design. He started to laugh. The plan to get out worked. MWA ha ha ha. Mr. Compress checked over his pockets, then seemed to do a double take. That's odd, he muttered. Mastermind paused his laughter to stare at Mr. Compress. What's odd? Mr. Compress rummaged in his pocket. It seems that I grabbed an extra item on the way out. Mastermind shrugged. Well, it's probably no big dash. Mr. Compress pulled the marble out, everybody looking closely and then doing a double take. Deal. Inside was a small figure in school uniform with black hair and glasses, frozen in place. Golden Grin was the first to speak. You grabbed another person. Mr. Compress looked away. Well, in the smoke it's not exactly easy to keep track of everything and we were in a rush, he mumbled. La Brava chewed her thumb. This is bad, this is really bad. Ink Blot couldn't help but nod. Gentle Criminal looked at the marble, then at Mastermind. "Do you have a plan, Mastermind?" Mastermind had been muttering this whole time, a piece of paper in hand and furiously scribbling on it. When he heard his name, he folded the paper in half. "We'll have to do the damsel in distress then," he stated. Inkblot gave a small grin. "Seriously? We're going to do that? What about the plan that we'd need for that?" Mastermind shrugged. "Well, this happened and it's not really anybody's fault. So we might as well go for it and make it look intentional." He suddenly posed dramatically. "Besides, you think the brilliant Mastermind Krikathum has not just thought of one? Mr. Compress." The taller villain turned to Mastermind neatly. "Yes." Mastermind pulled out a couple of marbles from his own pocket. "We need to make sure that our guest is comfortable, and doesn't get any ideas about escaping." Thunder roared. "MWA ha ha ha." Itza staggered, vision slowly returning through the thick cloud of smoke. He had just gone on a tour to the Monkara Support Agency, a business that provided quality support gear to a wide variety of heroes. Then the League of Villains had shown up, and he had been trying to guide his classmates to safety when thick purple smoke had enshrouded him and the others. Then, nothing. As he tried to recover, his arm was suddenly pulled behind him, holding him in place with a grip like a vice. As he strained to see through the smoke, it cleared, revealing several figures he'd only seen what must have been a few hours ago. Mastermind, lounging on a throne with Gentle Criminal and Mr. Warp standing on either side. Next to them, Golden Grin and the diminutive La Brava were looking over the space they were in, keeping an eye on him. Behind him, the rabbit-themed villain that vaguely resembled Inkblot kept her grip on his arm firm yet gentle. "MWA ha ha ha. Krikathum." Tina gasped. "The League of Supervillains." Mastermind cackled. Indeed. The rest of the League of Supervillains stood around what was clearly a warehouse, refitted with various pieces of equipment. A large vat behind them let off green fumes, a sickly scent in the air. "You're currently in our deepest lair." "Which is super secret." Tina's eyes widened. He was in their secret lair? Why would they take him here? Unless... A horrible thought snuck in. He broke into a cold sweat. They couldn't know about it, the crime he had committed. Mastermind simply laughed. "Oh, the plans we have in store for you." "MWA ha ha ha. MWA ha ha ha." Thunder roared, the other villain seeming to grin as well. "We need your help with a little dash." Tina froze in place. He knew it, he'd always known this was going to happen. They had found out his crimes and had him here for only one thing. They wanted a new member of the League of Supervillains and had found him to be a candidate. His mind swam with his horrible crimes. Which one had they found? Mastermind was a genius who had an uncanny knack for finding any corruption, such as that bank which had been revealed to be ripping off other people. Mastermind must have found his shameful deeds and found him prime villain material. What a devious, nefarious villain. Mastermind got out of his throne. Kid. Are you okay?" He made his way closer to Tina, hesitantly. "What's with that look? We aren't actually going to hurt you. It's just a bluff for the heroes." Inkblot checked Tina over. I am not hurting you that badly, am I? You're just a kid, unless you're some sort of businessman or something." She smiled slightly shakily. "It's going to be okay dash." Tina took in a deep breath. I don't want to be a villain, but if you know what crimes I've done, then so be it." Mastermind stood frozen. Dash. Tina looked at the ground. I need to think of a new villain name. Maybe reverse ingenium, that'll work. And I need to work on my villain laugh, don't I? Mastermind Crickethoom does not know what you're talking about dash. Tina whipped his head up, pulling his arm free. You know what horrible crimes I have committed? He gestured animatedly, arms chopping for emphasis. Just last week. I saw that the light was red, but there were no cars. So rather than wait for the walk signal, I crossed the road. Oh, my shameful moral degradation. What dash? And there's more. Only a few days ago, at the vending machine I paid for a can of orange juice, and the machine dropped too. Tina shuddered, in his own personal hell. I wanted to pay for it, but I didn't have enough money in my wallet. So I took the can for myself. He burst into tears, batting away Mastermind's all-might handkerchief. I'm too evil to be a hero. Gentle criminal looked confused. Well, that's pretty nefarious, but I don't really think that one was a crime dash. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had to borrow a pen dash. Tina's heart spasmed with the shame of not having a pen and showing how unprepared he was for heroics. But he pressed on and I said I would return it. But I haven't. I stole his pen. He curled up into a ball, rocking backwards and forwards with self-loathing. Mastermind hesitantly patted him on the back. It's, okay. I forget to return pens all the time dash. Such casual theft. Tina chopped the air in front of him rapidly, causing the villains to back up. And at Christmas, I said I was going to write a thank you card to all of my family, but I forgot to write a card for my uncle until 2 days later. Truly I can never be a hero after this. Mastermind looked at La Brava for assistance, only getting a shrug in response. What's your name? He passed Tina another handkerchief that wasn't soaked through. It's a Tina, Tina sniffed, dabbing at his eyes. But from now on, I must be known by my villain name, Reverse Ingenium. It's all I deserve for my crimes. Mastermind paused. Those all sound, villainous, but we just grabbed you so that we could threaten to lower you into a vat of toxic chemicals. Grabbing you wasn't intended, but we're going to make the best of it. Tina stared at Mastermind in shock. You mean, in spite of my offenses to mankind, you're just going to hold me hostage? You don't think I'm villain material? Mastermind gave him a hesitant thumbs up. Yes. Tina breathed a sigh of relief. Then his eyes shot open. Wait, toxic chemicals. Mastermind just nodded. Don't worry, the heroes'll get you free. It's not exactly what I planned, but dash. Tina tried to run for it, only for Inkblot to grab him by the back of his shirt and pull him back. Jesus, you're muscular for a teenager, she grunted. Golden grin crossed his arms and humped. Tina's mind spun. On the one hand, he could use his quirk and escape. But on the other hand, he'd be using his quirk without a hero license. That would make him a villain. While he agonized over it, his arms were tied behind him by Inkblot, and wasn't able to stop her from dragging him away to the huge vat in the corner. He looked down at the ground in shame. How could he face his brother like this? Itza Tensei nearly dropped his phone. What do you mean, Tina's gone missing? Horrible thoughts swam through his mind of what could have happened to his adorable little brother. His mother took a deep breath, obviously freaking out herself. The League of Supervillains attacked the company that his class was touring. When they took account of students. I'm sorry, but Tina-kun wasn't there. Tensei took in a deep breath. It's alright, Mom. I'm going to help handle it. There was a pause on the other side of the line, then his mother sighed. I know you will, Tensei. Make sure that you capture them all. Tensei gave a tight nod. Of course. When he hung up the phone, he pulled his helmet back on. Team Idaten. Enigma poked her head around the corner, the rest of the agency following suit. Yes. Ingenium looked them over. The League of Supervillains has kidnapped a student after their latest robbery. Team Ingenium will be helping the heroes assigned to Mastermind's specific case make a complete capture. Enigma looked at him oddly. You seem on edge, Tensei. Are you Dash? I'm fine, Enigma. Let's move out. As the rest of Team Idaten started to get moving, he scowled in his helmet. If Tinya wasn't fine when he got there, he was going to make sure that every villain that had hurt him would pay. What were they planning with his little brother? So, what's the plan? Mastermind took a deep breath. Okay, so Itsu-san is suspended over the vat of toxic chemicals, hold on. He turned around, turning up the volume on his mask. Are you alright? The harness shouldn't be cutting off your circulation. I tested it myself. Itsu was held on a large platform above a giant vat of glowing and bubbling green liquid. Toxic fumes wafted off of it as the young man squirmed. Release me, you fiends, he cried. Mastermind nodded. He's fine. He looked over the rest of it. So, this'll be a perfect distraction so that we can get away from here and back to our secure hideout. The machine itself won't lower him too quickly. It should be Dash. Inkblot looked at the vat again, turning on the private communications. I still don't know why you had Mr. Compress shrink a vat of toxic, acidic chemicals. Mastermind tilted his head. In case I needed a vat of toxic chemicals. Why would you even need something like that? Mastermind looked at her, and it dawned on her that Mastermind legitimately couldn't think of why you wouldn't need a vat of chemicals just in case. Golden Grin looked at him oddly. A vat you filled with Mountain Dew. Mastermind coughed. As I said, a vat with toxic chemicals and acid. Gentle Criminal opened his mouth to argue, then frowned, thinking it over. I suppose, he murmured. Itsu continued to struggle. Your schemes won't work, foul villain. The heroes will be here any moment. Mastermind grinned. I'd like to see them try. Nobody knows your Dash. He suddenly froze in place. Then he turned around. I knew I was forgetting something, he mumbled. Guess I'll have to leak the warehouse location Dash. Golden Grin boggled at Mastermind. You want to lead the heroes to our location? Mastermind fidgeted. Well Dash. Mr. Compress sighed. Mastermind, while it would be dramatic to have this kind of death trap, our own escape should be paramount. Mastermind nodded. I know. That's why, after we release the clues and we know the heroes are coming in, we'll slip through the back alleys to get away. The other villains shared a look. Mastermind looked down. I know this is risky. But, come on. It's a classic death trap scenario. The heroes will save him for sure, and in doing so we can slip away. It's worked so far, hasn't it? The League of Supervillains thought about it for a moment. Finally, Inkblot spoke. Let's do it. The Mastermind Task Force was already working hard on the scene of the Monkara break-in when Ingenium burst in on the scene, skidding to a stop. Death Arm stared at the younger hero as he panted, before he made a polite bow. Hello, Death Arm-san. I understand you're the one in charge of the current Mastermind investigation. Death Arms recovered quickly, nodding. Yes. We're just going over everything that Mastermind's left behind, his usual modus operandi. He picked up a tiny screen, scowling. Doubtless it would have some recording of some crime that the company had committed, or Masterminds taunting the heroes with their foolishness. Or both. Ingenium hummed. Have you had any success at tracking down their bases? Usual routes. Kamui Woods was the one to answer, shaking his head. They seem to take different routes every time. We haven't had any luck in tracking them down. Ingenium looked around, distracted. Well, if you have any reports on their movements after their activities, then Team Idayton could lend a hand. We're currently involved in an ongoing investigation with the hero killer, but I'm sure we can spare a few dash. He was cut off by a surprised gasp coming from the rest of the team. Whirling around, he saw a tiny red cube float down, no rotors holding it aloft. As it came closer, a small green lens popped open, lighting up. Projected in a haze of green light was Mastermind. Death Arms exclaimed. The supervillain made a generous gesture. Indeed, Death Arms. How are you? I'm doing great, thanks for asking. What have you done to Itzatinia? Ingenium practically shouted, glaring at the supervillain. Mastermind turned to look at Ingenium, then froze. Oh my god, it's Ingenium. He turned to somebody off camera. Is my cape alright? Ingenium stared at Mastermind, the wind taken from his sails. Mastermind really was just as confusing as the reports said. He suddenly remembered that he was on camera and coughed. Oh, he's fine, fine. And will continue to be for some time. However, if you don't want him to take a chemical bath, you'll have to find us first. Death Arms stared upwards for a moment before clearing his throat. Enough of your games, villain. Tell us where you are so you can face, he sighed. So you can face our super cool justice. Ingenium stared at Death Arms. What? Death Arms looked shifty. It helps get him talking. Just roll with it. Sure enough, Mastermind laughed maniacally, thunder roaring through the hologram emitter's speakers. Very well then, heroes. Better think quick, for the answer will be in these riddles. He cleared his throat, then tapped something on his wrist. The sight of Mastermind faded, replaced by a text box with several separate sections. He read out each one, the heroes watching carefully, Kamui Woods taking a photo of the riddles. What weighs 6 ounces, lives up in a tree and is very dangerous. Normally I have a small apartment. Once every month I live in a large house, but I did not move out of my apartment. What am I living in? I can be found underground and in cards. So what am I? I'm bright but I'm not clever, I burn but I'm not a bonfire, I sound like I'm a celebrity but I'm not famous, I twinkle but I'm not an eye, I can be seen at night but I'm not the moon. What am I? Ingenium glared at Mastermind. Enough games. If you don't hand back Itzatinia, so help me I'll dash. Mastermind turned around to somebody off camera. What? Cars ready? Oh. Hold on. I'm talking to the heroes. He turned back, attempting to get his composure back. Where was I? Oh, yes. Thunder roared yet again, the shorter man laughing as he posed dramatically. Come on, foolish heroes. If you can't figure out my riddle, then Itzakun will take a long bath in some toxic chemicals. MWA ha ha ha. MWA ha ha ha. He tapped a button on his gauntlet, turning around. The heroes watched, searching desperately for any clues. Okay guys, I've just told them the location. Now, we're going to have to dash. Mastermind. What is it, La Brava? The camera's still running. What? Mastermind frantically hammered at the control panel. Oh, God, I am sorry heroes. This is intentional. Totally not an accident. Way ha ha ha, seriously it should be dash. The video ended, the tiny cube hanging in the air for a second. Kamui Woods quickly lashed out to try and grab the cube, but it shot through the air at an incredible speed, rocketing over the horizon. Ingenium stared off in the distance before turning back to Death Arms. He could already feel a headache coming on. Is Mastermind dash? Oh, he's always like that. Ingenium jumped about a foot in the air at the sudden cheerful interjection. Whirling behind him, he stared at the people behind him. Ms. Joke gave him a cheerful wave, the heroine standing there with a confident grin. Next to her was a familiar face. Principal Nedzu. The short rat/dog/bear smiled. How good to see you again, Ingenium. I only wish it were under less serious circumstances. Ingenium nodded, not trusting himself to speak yet. Nedzu gave him a sympathetic pat on the back of the knee before turning to Death Arms. Now, to finding young Itza. You say that Mastermind left some riddles for us. Death Arms nodded, passing them on with a disgruntled look. Can't believe he's making a game out of it. Putting somebody's life at risk like that. He clenched his fist. Nedzu hummed, checking over the riddles before passing them up to Ms. Joke. What do you think? The pro-heroine looked over the riddles, a small smile on her face. After a couple of minutes she handed it back. I know the first one, but I still haven't figured out the other ones. Nedzu shrugged. The others would be a bit tricky for most people, I will admit. Ingenium looked at them. So what's the answer? Ms. Joke looked him in the eye. Well, the first one's from a classic movie, the answer's a sparrow with a machine gun. Death Arms and the rest of the heroes stared at her. Is this a joke? Ingenium demanded. She shook her head. Nope. Dead serious. Nedzu pointed at the second riddle. That one is a bit trickier, but I believe I've found it. If he hasn't moved out, and it happens once a month. What happens about once a month? Ms. Joke pondered for a moment, the other heroes looking between themselves. Suddenly her eyes shot wide open. The full moon. Nedzu grinned. Exactly. Which makes where he lives dash. A warehouse. Ms. Joke grinned widely, a laugh passing her lips. I'll have to remember that one. Death Arms and Kamui Woods looked between each other. So, what was the third one? Nedzu grinned, but Ms. Joke beat him to the punch. Well, I thought about it, and it's a word play. If it's in cards and underground, I thought of similar sounding words. Then it hit me. She grinned. Taro. It's both a root vegetable dash. And the name of the fortune-telling deck. Ingenium mulled it over. And the last one. Nedzu grinned. A star, obviously. Think about it. Ingenium stared for a minute. So. Sparrow with a machine gun, warehouse, Taro, and star? Those are our clues. Nedzu nodded. Precisely, Ingenium. So, we're going to need a map. From a breast pocket he pulled out a small map, unfurling it. The heroes crowded around, looking at Nedzu as he did so. So, over here in Musudafu, there is indeed a Sparrow Street. He pointed to a part of the map, letting the heroes confirm. Once they were satisfied, he continued. This part of town does have a lot of warehouses, but I'm confident in this address. He pointed it out. Number 17. Ingenium looked at him. Why 17? Nedza grinned. The star in the traditional tarot deck has the number 17. Mastermind made that choice deliberately. Ingenium frowned in his mask, but didn't object to Nedzu's choice. Still, we'll have to check all other warehouses in the area just to be sure. He turned around, tapping his earpiece. Attention, Team I Dayton. We're going to be helping the Mastermind Task Force. I want everybody to get to Sparrow Street. Now, let's coordinate. Mastermind wasn't going to get away with this. Mastermind and the rest of the League of Supervillains checked the radar. We're going to have to time this very carefully, Mastermind murmured. The plan was simple yet effective. As the heroes would figure out the riddle, the Master Mobile was ready and raring to go. The Mastermind security grid was fully functional, and would pick up when the heroes were in the area. When that happened, Mastermind and Co. would toss off a pithy one-liner, then flee the area. And make for the back alleyways, where we can split up and get lost. Then we regroup at. We'll make it to Jiren's place. Ink blot finished. You sure we can trust him? Gentle nodded. The man won't sell out some of his best clients. He'll help us lay low if we need to. La Brava checked over her computer screen. It seems that the heroes have figured out what your riddles were about. They're on the move. Itza struggled in his bonds again. Mastermind carefully pressed a button, starting the process to lower him into the vat. Curse you, you foul villains. You won't get away with this. Mastermind gave him a thumbs up. Thank you for being a great hostage. It's really encouraging to hear that. Hope to see you when you become a hero. The computer for the security grid beeped. Mastermind grinned, gesturing. All right, we're getting a hero coming dash. The door was smashed in, Ingenium skidding in. He took in the scene, then glared at Mastermind. You. Mastermind grinned. Yes, it's me. The devious criminal genius, Mastermind. Thunder boomed, the Master Mobile starting up. Ingenium was about to start towards them, but then Itza's bonds dropped lower. Mastermind waggled a finger. Capture us or save young Itza from a chemical bath. You decide. The car shot off, Mastermind's maniacal laughter echoing around the room. Ingenium didn't hesitate. He sped over to the chemical vat, seeing the obvious control panel. For a brief moment, he scanned the control panel, trying to find how to get Itza down safely. Checking one last time, he pressed the big red button marked power. It felt too obvious, but considering Mastermind's typical style, it would have to be that one. Tina stopped, hanging a few feet from the surface of the liquid as Ingenium ran up the steps to the vat's top. Itza. Are you alright? Ingenium pulled Itza in closer, freeing him from his bonds. Once free, Tina wrapped his big brother in a hug. Tensei. He gripped his brother tighter. Thank you for coming to save me. I'm so sorry for causing you to worry about me. Pulling his helmet off, Tensei smiled at his brother. It's alright, Tina. Besides, I'm your brother, I kind of have to worry about your safety. Tina pulled back slightly, trying his best to be serious. But Nii-san dash. Tensei shook it off. The most important thing to do when you're a hero is make sure that everybody's okay after the fact, right? Tina stared up at his brother with eyes. But what about Mastermind? Tensei patted his head. Did you think I was going to let him get away? He pulled his helmet back on, thinking about the plan. Team Idaten's philosophy was to make sure that the right hero was in the right place at the right time. Ingenium knew that the right place for him to be was at his brother's side, getting him to safety. The rest of the team he'd called in was focused on catching the League of Supervillains. He'd been counting on them deciding to make a quick getaway rather than fight. Based on their profile, they're a group that prefers not to fight unless necessary. Combined with Mastermind's penchant for drama, and there's no way he wouldn't stay near me long enough to give me a pithy one-liner. That gives the rest of Idaten time to maneuver, and means that we can stretch our net wide enough to catch them. Over his earpiece he heard the rest of Idaten communicating. Mastermind and co-seen traveling down side roads. Estimated destination is the back alleys of Musudafu. Got that? Make sure that the cordon is properly enforced. In typical Team Idaten fashion, they accomplished this through strong teamwork with plenty of surveillance. There were a few eyes in the sky, along with heroes on the ground. They were aiming to get the League of Supervillains into a dangerous position, one where they'd have the maximum opportunity. He turned to his little brother. Tinya, are you okay to get home by yourself? Tinya gave a stiff nod. Of course. As befitting a civilian, I'll be heading home after I debrief with the police and heroes. Tensei smiled. So serious, Tinya. You did a good job holding out. Tinya shuddered with happiness, a giddy smile on his face. Of course, brother. I want to be a hero just like you after all. Tensei patted his brother on the back. Be the best hero you can be, Tinya. Now, off you go. His headset beeped. Ingenium pulled his helmet back on, ready to hear the news. We've managed to get the League of Supervillains into our ideal position. Enigma and Big Shot are with Kamui Woods and Mount Lady, ready to capture. Mastermind stared out at the scene in front of him. The other villains in the car shifted nervously. The heroes had managed to cut them off, leaving practically no way out. Every way they had turned seemed to have a cordon up. And then they had ended up here, in a small street where the heroes stood. Mastermind recognized the giant hero Enigma, the girl's body a huge black mass with a bone-white face. Big Shot, the blast hero, stood with his hands together, letting his quirk charge up to its maximum size. Mastermind half turned to the rest of the crew. Guys, I'm so sorry. I let my love of drama get in the way again and now dash. Inkblot shook her head. Nah, it was my original idea. Behind the barricade, Kamui Woods pulled out a megaphone, pointing at the League. Villains. Come out with your hands up. Mr. Compress straightened his sleeves. If anybody is going to be blamed, it should be me for grabbing him in the first place. Mastermind took a deep, calming breath. It was my plan as I said, but, well, what's done is done. We can argue about it later. He stood up suddenly. Everybody. Get ready to run. Inkblot turned to the shorter villain, eyes wide. Mastermind. Mastermind tapped a panel on his armor, the sound of his plasma reactor firing up. I've been holding a few things in reserve, just in case things got dangerous. Inkblot looked at him in horror. You can't be thinking dash. Mastermind shook his head. I'm not going to blow them up. But I am going to make an opening for the rest of you to escape dash. Inkblot cuffed him on the back of the head. She scowled down at him. Idiot. Her frown split into a shark-like grin. That kind of plan ain't flying. Mr. Compress twirled his cane. Indeed. My love of drama matches, and possibly even exceeds your own, mastermind. To make a final stand against these heroes, possibly escaping, he swept into a bow. What greater show could there be? Gentle criminal wiped some sweat from his brow, adjusting his cravat. All for one and one for all. This will be our best video yet. La Brava puffed herself up. We're in this together, and we'll make a spectacular getaway. Mastermind stared at each of them. No, no. You have to run dash. Inkblot gripped him tightly. Nobody gets left behind, remember. Mastermind stared at each of them. Why you guys, he sobbed. Mr. Compress and Gentle Criminal patted him on the back. Let's give them a show, Mastermind. Mastermind took a deep breath, trying to recover. Yeah. He suddenly perked right up. The heroes think they've got us, but they've seen nothing yet. MWA ha ha ha. La Brava smiled, tears glinting in her eyes. There was the mastermind who had become her best friend. The villains all exited the car, the heroes watching. A burst of warping smoke from Mr. Compress came, golden grin popping out with a similarly determined expression on his face. The whole conversation had been transmitted, since Mastermind had built the communicators to work with Mr. Compress quirk. Kamui Woods asked the question. Are you surrendering? For answer, Mastermind posed dramatically. Not a chance, heroes. You'll have to do better than this to capture the brilliant Mastermind and the League of Supervillains. MWA ha ha ha. MWA ha ha ha. As the thunder roared, La Brava stared up at all of these wonderful people in her life. A grin formed on her face as they prepared to take the fight to the heroes. I love you guys, so much. Author's note, this went through some changes. Originally it was Todoroki, but then I thought it would be funnier with Itza. So, what will happen next? Will Mastermind and Co escape, or will we see the Tartaru's arc? Find out next time in Villain Notebook for the Future. As always, comment, criticize, offer up new ideas. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, subscribe to my channel for more fan fictions like this, and goodbye.